I am so excited this morning to introduce Sally Heinz and Dorothy McClure of MIFA. MIFA has a very important role in what we are talking about as we enter our Martin Luther King Jr. 50th anniversary. So we've been talking about MLK 50 for the past couple of Sundays, and being people of resurrection joy, I really do look at MIFA as a resurrection joy that came out of the martyrdom of Martin Luther King Jr. It is his legacy in our city. They are such a profound and wonderful resource for all of outreach in Memphis. If you ever have an outreach-related question, the answer will inevitably be, call MIFA, they'll know. This is just a wonderful partnership that Holy Communion has had with MIFA for many, many years. If you are so inspired today to get more deeply engaged in the work of MIFA, we've got two wonderful women here to talk to. Or if you want to think about it for a while and call back next week, I will be around and I can get you plugged in a heartbeat. So without further ado, Sally Heinz of MIFA, thank you.
Thank you, and good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to Holy Communion. I see lots of MIFA friends here, and I'm grateful to be in your company. And thanks, Dorothy, for getting up and coming with me this morning. Sandy and Jane asked me this morning to focus on MIFA's history. I understand that you've been reading some of Dr. King's sermons, and I also talk a little bit about faith and service because MIFA's vision is uniting the community through service. That's really what we're all about. So we'll talk about some volunteer opportunities as well. MIFA will be celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2018. And as you can imagine, in preparation for this event, staff and board members have been looking back at our history and spending a lot of time thinking about the times in which MIFA was founded, times that in reality seem sadly similar to today, times fed by fear and mistrust and marked in our community by extreme poverty, racism, and injustice. Fortunately for Memphis in the 1960s, there was a growing movement among people of faith to provide opportunities for interfaith and interracial dialogue and to seek ways for congregations to respond to the social needs in our community. Historically in Memphis, there had been two ministerial associations, the All-Black Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance and the Memphis Ministers Association. By 1968, the Memphis Ministers Association was desegregated, though only 125 of the 700 ministers in Memphis belonged, and only 15 of those members were black. Rabbi James Wax was the president, and he established a race relations committee chaired by Father Viron of the Greek Orthodox Annunciation Church. Rabbi Wax proposed to the committee that it issue a statement in the form of a paid advertisement in the two newspapers, the Commercial Appeal and the Press Scimitar. Adopted at a regular meeting of the Ministers Association on January 2nd, 1968, it was the first such public statement ever made by a ministers group in Memphis. Called an appeal to conscience, it urged that anyone who loves God must also love his brother. Thus, prejudice and discrimination are sinful according to the ethics of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Further, it stated that brotherhood is a full-time occupation, requiring involvement rather than oratory and needing actions, not words. The advertisement appeared in the Commercial Appeal on Saturday, February 4th, 1968. Public reaction to the unusual involvement of Memphis ministers in social issues was generally unfavorable. They were advised to let the mayor run the city while they attended to religion. I have copies of this statement. If you're interested, Dorothy's got them. We can pass some around. Again, it appeared in the paper on February 4th, 1968, and 2 months later, Dr. King was assassinated. The desire for an agency like MIFA was really championed by the Downtown Churches Association, congregations who saw the reality of social needs on their doorsteps every day. Members of these congregations, such as Annabelle Whittemore at St. Mary's Episcopal Cathedral, recognized there were serious unaddressed issues and new congregations should be involved. By the fall of 1967, this group had formulated a plan to study the feasibility of establishing a central metropolitan interfaith agency to mobilize the compassion and resources of the faith community. The chaos and panic that followed the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. became the catalyst for the birth of MIFA. MIFA was officially established on September 15, 1968, at a meeting at St. Mary's Cathedral to help congregations build awareness of the social issues in the city and to stimulate their support for positive change. Annabelle Whittemore stated, "If we had tried to get MIFA started at any other time, we would have failed. But the sanitation strike and the assassination convinced the churches that we really did have problems in this city and that no single church could solve them alone. There was a role for the religious community as a whole to play." Annabelle Whittemore was also the first president of the MIFA Board of Directors. At first, it was unclear just what MIFA would be. In 1971, with depleted funding and feeble community support, MIFA almost collapsed. But salvation came through visionary executive directors and the VISTA volunteers and staff members who reinvented MIFA as a service organization. When Gid Smith was hired as MIFA's executive director in 1972, the board advised him that he had 6 months to achieve credibility, produce action, and clear winners, and 6 months to raise the funds for his own salary. I know. The turnaround really happened for MIFA when in July 1974, a contract was awarded to MIFA by the federal government for VISTAs, or Volunteers in Service to America. Local, educated, mature women with a history of service were recruited as volunteers. Most VISTA programs imported college students from out of town, and our successful use of local recruits became a nationwide model. Many of those VISTAs went on to join the ranks of MIFA's leadership staff. And I know we have some folks here on the front row who were at MIFA then and know just what I am talking about. Thanks to the vision and hard work of these VISTAs, MIFA became an incubator for programs. Some programs like the Mid-South Food Bank, the Best Times, Child Advocacy Center, spun off to become successful independent entities, while others never quite took flight and were discontinued. Others still, like Transit and Meals on Wheels, are still in operation at MIFA today. According to Frank McRae, there was another important benefit to MIFA's VISTAs. He said, "Socialites are now servant ministers, and that changes attitudes. It has legitimized urban ministry in Memphis." Today, MIFA has a focused mission. We support the independence of vulnerable seniors and families in crisis. We serve 50,000 people each year. We have an aspirational vision, uniting the community through service. A vision that supports our belief that if we come together, donor, volunteer, client, and staff member, we can achieve more than we imagine. MIFA's family programs are designed to prevent homelessness, stabilize families, and encourage independence. These programs offer a spectrum of interventions designed to address the vulnerability that could lead a family to homelessness. These interventions may start with something as basic as rent, mortgage, or utility assistance for a family facing a crisis like a job layoff or unexpected medical emergency. Think of a mother who's forced to choose between 2 needs for her children: food on the table or a utility payment to keep the power on at home. We don't think a mother should have to make that choice, so we help with the utility payment. It may seem small, but often it's enough to keep a family stable and in their home. The other half of MIFA services are our programs for seniors, which are designed to promote independence, health, companionship, and dignity. Whether we're providing a home-delivered meal or assistance with daily living activities for a frail senior, our services help our clients maintain the greatest level of independence that they can. Our largest and best-known program for seniors is Meals on Wheels. Many of you have delivered meals. I'm grateful to Holy Communion. I know you all have a regular route. Thank you very much for that. Each weekday, volunteers and MIFA staff deliver more than 2,000 meals to seniors in their homes. This is the difference a meal and a friendly visit from a volunteer can make. Clients tell us that they eat healthier foods, that they have access to more than one meal a day. They tell us they maintain their weight. And they tell us more. They tell us the program allows them to continue to live at home, and they tell us they feel less lonely. Every day when I arrive for work, I walk in the front doors and I see families waiting to be screened for assistance. These are families with parents who work, but perhaps someone has gotten sick or someone has lost a job. Perhaps they received a cutoff notice from MLGW, or perhaps they've been evicted by their landlord. Whatever the case, they would rather not ask for help, but here they are at MIFA seeking assistance. And it makes me sad to see these families, sometimes with their luggage and all their children. But I'm grateful that MIFA's there. I'm grateful that they have a place to come. And then I continue to the other side of the building where our Meals on Wheels kitchen is. And every day I see at least 70 volunteers coming through those doors. These volunteers pick up their coolers and they head out in all kinds of weather to deliver their meals and visit with their clients. My heart is lifted when I see the number of people in our community who are willing to put their faith into action. Here is a revelation about faith and service that I know all of you in this room know. When you serve, you receive more than you give. Let me tell you a story about one of our meals volunteers. Judy has been delivering meals with her best friend for over 20 years. As sometimes happened, they had a new client added to their regular route. This new client was very frail. She needed assistance just pulling the film back from the tray that the meal comes in. So Judy started to chat with her, and the client commented that she had lived her entire life in this same house. Judy asked her if she'd gone to Snowden and Central because Judy knew the neighborhood. And when the client responded that she had, Judy said, "Well, what year did you graduate?" And the woman replied, 1939. So Judy asked her if she had remembered a particular classmate, and the woman said, "Natalie, of course I remember Natalie. I knew her very well." Well, Natalie was Judy's mother. And that's not the end of the story. Judy lost her mother when she was just 4 years old. So while Judy's memories of her mother are rather limited, here she met someone who had known her mother for 12 years. Needless to say, Judy made a new friend, and she started to visit this client on a more regular basis. Sometimes we make assumptions about who is serving whom, only to have those assumptions turned upside down. Here's another revelation about faith and service. Serving and serving together can build community. It can break down barriers, and it offers us the opportunity to meet people who are different from us. Another Meals on Wheels volunteer from St. John's Episcopal Church describes this phenomenon. "I treasure my visits with my meals clients, teasing them about whether they are watching The Price is Right or The View, and asking if I can stop in and watch with them. I notice a new outfit or a family photograph on display. I'm a different person in that I'm learning to see but not judge, give without expecting anything in return, and love unconditionally." MIFA's vision is uniting the community through service. That principle is at the heart of all we do. Our staff, our clients, our supporters, and volunteers come from all walks of life, from all faiths and backgrounds and parts of town. And MIFA is the place that brings them together, because we know that the differences between us aren't all that great. One crisis could bring anyone through our doors for help with a utility bill or to ask for a hot meal for their aging parent. MIFA is a place where people can serve and can celebrate our similarities rather than highlight our differences. Because no matter where we come from or what we believe in, we can serve. And when we serve, we do more than solve problems. We promote and experience the richness and dignity of human lives. An agency doesn't get to be 50 years old, I like to think, without doing some things right. At MIFA, we are proud of our program results. We know we help seniors. In FY17, we served 554,000 home-delivered meals to 3,800 clients. We know we help families. In FY17, we served 3,500 families with utility, rent, and mortgage assistance. We distributed 11,000 food vouchers. We are proud of our financial stability. We have planned for sustainability. We have an endowment of close to $15 million. We have healthy reserve funds. We're proud of our staff. We invest in training. We pay attention to staff retention. All of these best practices have helped ensure that MIFA is still here after 50 years and should ensure that MIFA will be here for future generations. But perhaps the most important factor in MIFA's longevity is what our founders knew in 1968 and what we still know today. In a city once again divided by fear, hate, suspicion, and misunderstanding, MIFA offers a remedy that is both profound and practical. We can know our neighbors. We offer Memphians the opportunity to know their neighbors, over 50,000 of them each year. Knowing our neighbors in their greatest areas of need, nutritious food, companionship, and advocacy for seniors, and shelter for families in crisis. And so we will celebrate MIFA in 2018. We will celebrate with a party. We will celebrate with community service days, pairing congregations to participate in community projects. And we will celebrate by launching the MIFA Center for Community, an interactive digital platform that promotes MIFA's interfaith and service legacy and offers engagement opportunities and resources for individuals and families. We will celebrate while knowing that there is still work to be done. We will celebrate because we have made progress, and we know, as our founders knew, that we can achieve more when we work together. Thank you for having me. That's sort of the end of my formal comment. But I did bring, I would love some discussion or questions. I do want to mention volunteer opportunities quickly. Thanks again for delivering meals. We always do need Meals on Wheels volunteers. We're working to make that easier and more enjoyable for you. We'll launch a new volunteer app in January that you'll have everything on your phone, so you won't have those paper route sheets anymore. We also need volunteers for the Ombudsman program. I have a faithful ombudsman right here. These are our volunteers who visit nursing and care homes and make sure that those patients know that they have a right to advocacy. And next year we will launch a new volunteer program. We don't really have a name for it now, except we're calling it the Phone Buddy program. And this will be an opportunity for some of our home-delivered meals clients for a volunteer just to call or be a pen pal and do note cards and do things to help that person feel a little bit less isolated. The community days I mentioned, where we're partnering congregations. I know our congregational outreach staff person, Linda Marks, will be talking to you all soon about that, because we certainly want Holy Communion to be a part of that. And even before all of our celebration happens, which next fall, it will be in September and October, we have Founders Day right here in this room on May 22nd before you all tear it all up, I guess. And our speaker is Ollie Renter, so I know that you will want to have the chance to come and hear Ollie. I do have some handouts. I have copies of the Appeal to Conscience that I mentioned that the ministers wrote in 1968, and some information on MIFA's programs and impact if you want to see a summary of that, and also the schedule of our 50th anniversary events next year. But I'm glad to take any questions, and I have lots of help in the room if I can to answer them. We really felt like there was a need to try to provide some resources, and I don't want to call it a curriculum because that sounds so heavy, but one of the things we have been doing at MIFA for the past couple of years, and Dorothy is really the instigator of these, are things called family days, because we were hearing a lot from parents, how do I talk to my children about poverty, or how do I introduce my children to service without it being sort of a scary thing. So we've started these family days where parents come with their children and do an activity and then go out and deliver meals together and then come back and talk about it. And those have been real successful. So we one of the things this digital resource will contain are some activities like that perhaps families could do on their own, suggestions for conversations, and then just a place to make it all very easy to sign up for MIFA's volunteer activities and the descriptions of those and the application all in one place in our annual schedule of special events. So it'll be a fun mishmash of service and interfaith resources. The new program that will start in January is called Share the Pennies. And it really is about weatherization for homes in Memphis. Memphis has an inordinate level of energy burden on households. And so the idea is that if you can get into a home and do some insulation and caulking around windows and that sort of thing, that we can bring the utility bill down for families. Yes, but you can opt out if you want. I think that the max that anybody would pay extra on their bill is about $20 a year or something. I'm not sure. I think as they start out, it is home ownership, and as the program matures, hopefully there'll be some opportunity for landlords to participate. But rather than open the stream, turn the spigot on to full, it was to start with kind of some narrow restrictions and see how things go. Right. So they're two separate, plus one, the Share the Pennies is sort of a proactive approach, and plus one is really there for those families that find themselves in a crisis and need immediate help. So it's vitally important. MIFA's a transit program for seniors. Transportation in our community is an enormous issue and need and struggle right now, I know, but our focus is on helping seniors get to doctor's appointments, the grocery store, government offices, things like that they might need to do. Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. And MIFA Transit is the oldest program at MIFA. We do, the methodology has changed a little bit, but MIFA is the central screening for families who are either literally homeless or imminently homeless. There's a homeless hotline that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we can refer families to shelter if necessary. We really prefer not to put a family in shelter because there are sometimes families can't stay together if they're children, and there are just other consequences. So often our work is mediating with other family members to find out if there is a place for that family to stay besides going to shelter. But if we do have to help with housing, the program used to be that you're describing, transitional housing, where a family could stay for 1 to 2 years. The results from that program nationwide were not as positive, they found, or not as effective as if you just put a family into permanent housing immediately, more quickly, and provided wraparound services for that family in permanent housing. Because while they were in transitional housing, a family really sort of still felt homeless because they knew they could not be there forever. And the permanent housing, rapid rehousing, we call it, the family gets to pick the part of town where they want to be, and the apartment has to, or home has to be inspected, but so a child is not necessarily disrupted and can continue to go to the school where they have been going. So it's turns out to be much more impactful. And I think, Dorothy, the results are that over 90% of the families who have been helped through the rapid rehousing program are still in those homes. So it's really effective. Now, they're a partner we have, but we're not directly connected with them. Thank you. That's a really important program and not talked about as much because of confidentiality. And Meals on Wheels, really, and the nice thing about Meals on Wheels is that it's very flexible, and you can be a substitute if you want to just be on that list, so that we know we can call you if we have a volunteer who is sick or for some reason can't come that day. The Ombudsman program is more hours a month, I think, right? And then we have seasonal things to do as well. During the holidays, we're doing holiday cards, and we'll have other activities such as that throughout the year. And so one thing this digital resource will help us with is pushing those opportunities out more effectively so that volunteers or interested folks know what's available when and can plan for that. In the past year, we have really had to educate ourselves on advocacy and be more attuned to budgetary activity with our federal government. Dorothy, I think we are about 60% individual, funded by individual grants and individual gifts, and about 40% various government funds. Some of that's federal, some of it is local. The Older Americans Act that funds our transit program and our Meals on Wheels program is probably our biggest federal funding, and it has bipartisan support, so it is pretty safe, but the issue is that it has not increased. So while the need increases and costs increase, that funding for meals has stayed flat, with no seeming activity to increase that. So we have worried a little more this year than other years about what may happen, and of course now with the idea that maybe some of those programs will need to be cut to accommodate the tax reform, that's on our mind too. And when other services to our population are threatened, it means that some of the activity or services that MIFA provides might also be impacted just by sheer numbers of people who need more help. MIFA has been successful at leveraging that government support with our generous community. Missy could probably talk about that. Our sort of catty corner, we're at the corner of East and Vance, and the food bank is a little... The food bank started at MIFA, and that is, I think, why there continues to be a little confusion, and then became its own in, do you know what year that was? Well, and we have expanded our meals delivery with a grant from the Plow Foundation in the last 2 or 3 years, and it gave us the opportunity to partner again with the food bank. So They are helping provide some of the food that we're delivering to seniors. So they're trying to approach hunger for the entire population. But the backpack program for kids is one of their biggest. The Alliance does a count every year, and a point-in-time count, and I should have brought those numbers. I did not bring those with me, so I hesitate to answer specifically on that. That's another volunteer opportunity if anybody is interested in participating in that point-in-time count. I think it happens in January. Homelessness in Memphis. Has it increased? Or I think family homelessness, which is our specific, is actually down a little bit, and I'm not sure about the individuals, men. That number remains about constant. We get about the same number of requests every year, which I think is close to 17,000, and we can't help all of them. Sometimes it's our guidelines and things that stand in the way, but it's consistent. Suzanne Darnell, I don't know if any of you know Suzanne, who wrote a paper on MIFA several years ago, brought in an annual report from 1971 when Bob Dempsey was leaving right before GID came on board. And an annual report said that the poverty rate in Memphis at that time was 25%. So it's, we are still looking at a similar number today. It's not it's a long-standing issue. And I'm sorry, that's good. Do we do any sort of nutritional counseling or programs around better diets in our community, because we know high blood pressure and diabetes are so pervasive? We do have a dietitian on staff, so we do nutritional counseling for our Meals on Wheels clients. Our emergency services program, we are seeing people for just a couple of hours, so we don't necessarily have that counseling for them. All of our Meals on Wheels meals are, meet all of the guidelines for diabetes and high blood pressure and that. So those meals are very healthy. But we do, our dietitian does go to our community sites where we do congregate meals and does counseling for all of those. Yes, there are. MIFA does not do those, but there are, I think the organization is called TILF that works and Grow Memphis, so yes. No, the Share the Pennies, we'll be doing some of that for, home repair for seniors. Thank you. We did have a program like that several years ago, and it was funding that was not renewed. But Share the Pennies and that home weatherization will. All right. Thank you all.
With each of our baptismal vows, we take a vow to respect the dignity of every human being, and through interfaith work and through outreach work, MIFA is one of our greatest partners and help us live into that baptismal vow. So they'll stick around if you have more questions, if you want to dive deeper into something. And again, I'll be around as well if anybody has questions later on after you've chewed on this for a while. But just want to thank you all again for coming today. Thank you.